What is going on, everybody, man? It is LFR Jojo, and today we'll be covering Kamala Harris versus the Donald Trump debate. I've been taking a break from YouTube for a while because I was in school. So now that I'm settled in, I'm very excited to get into this. So without further ado, let's get it.
See, have fun.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their number one issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive.
Every time I hear Kamala speak, and this is no offense, and I don't want to say things for too long, but when she comes to saying things like, oh, I want to build an opportunity economy, it always confuses me because you were in office for the past 3.5 years. And I don't want to show any disrespect to her because I want to remain objective. But you've been in office. You're the vice president. You are the number one advisor to President Biden. If you wanted to build an opportunity economy, why haven't you? And the reason I'm saying this is because the economy is not just now getting bad. The economy has been bad for the past 3 years. This is not something new or relevant only to 2024. This is something that's been going on since 2021, since COVID. So where has this plan been? And also, why are we only hearing this plan now in August? That's all I want to know.
Expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan.
No. Kamala. I understand you're going to give small business money. I actually think not in hindsight, but on paper, that's a good idea. You're going to give small businesses $50,000, so on and so forth. My thing is this. If we are facing some of the largest inflation that we've faced in decades, where's this money coming from? And I honestly think that's a fair question because if your plan is to give $25,000 for housing and $50,000 for small businesses, $6,000 for childcare credit, where's this money coming from? We already have inflation right now. I genuinely want to know, are you going to show us the budget? Are you going to pull this money from other places? Because in the Democratic Party, you are also known for, being more socialist anyways. You're such as giving money to other countries. So are you just going to spend more taxpayer dollars? Genuine question.
Is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never.
And then she didn't really even answer the question. That wasn't even what the question asked. But since we're on the topic, let's talk about the economy. I want to share this chart right here, because this is not something that I take lightly. I think this is one of the biggest issues that we have today. So if you can see, this is our inflation right now for shelter costs or home costs. Look at the peak. In 2020, we had some of the lowest costs. Whether you want to say it's Trump or not, that's up to you. That's subjective. Whatever. Say it's Obama from before. Say it's because of the COVID-19. Say it's whatever. But in 2020, we had some of the lowest costs other than 2010. See what happened between 2021 and 2023. Look at those interest rates. Look at them. Look at them, bro. And this is not me making this up. This is something that's happening right now. It's called super core inflation. I don't know what else to do. I don't know what else to say. The data is right there. So when you're talking about, when Kamala says, oh, this is not, she's talking about Donald Trump's plan, or she's talking about her plan and how she's going to add to a super economy or do all these things, giving away money. We have some of the highest inflation rates right now. Where is it going to come from? Let's get back into it.
We took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions.
And I want to touch on that because there was a lot of controversy around when Donald Trump said African American jobs or black jobs in his last debate with Biden. And the reason I want to talk about this specifically because I want people to understand exactly what he's saying. What he's saying is, when you let too many illegal people across the border, yes, I'm going to emphasize illegal because that's not the same thing as legal immigration. They have to work. And plus, they don't pay the traditional taxes that citizens pay. So they are taking jobs that cost less because they don't have to pay taxes. They don't have to have insurance. That's the problem when you have people who are illegal. They aren't held to the same standard as citizens. So when he's saying the Biden administration has let in too many illegals or too many people across the border the wrong way, they are taking lower income jobs, which they are. And the reason why this is important is because the Biden administration specifically, and this is no offense to them necessarily, but this is one area that they definitely did lack in. They 100% lowered border patrol or border control. It's like they did it to spite Trump, who implemented ICE, so on and so forth. So what they did was they said, okay, we're going to go the complete opposite direction. Anyone could come across the border, and the numbers don't lie. So when he's saying this is bad, you're taking away lower income jobs, these people don't have to pay taxes, they don't have to have insurance, they don't have to have the same rules that citizens have. He's being honest. That's the truth. They're getting lower income jobs simply because they can. It won't hurt them. It won't hurt them to take a job that pays $4 an hour. They don't have to pay taxes. It's fine. So I really wanted to see how Kamala responds to that. So, let's get back into it.
Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country. and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
No, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do this, Kamala. And I get it. It's a debate. You want to be, you want to kind of attack your opponent. That's the right approach to take. But what the current administration is leaving my generation, Generation Z, the generation where we have to buy houses now. We have to find a way to make money now to support our future families. What you're leaving us is one of the worst housing markets in history. What you're currently leaving us is some of the worst inflation that we've ever seen. What you're currently leaving us is dishonesty on the recession right now. No one has information on it. What you're currently leaving us is massive amounts of illegal immigration. That's what you are currently leaving us today. So when you talk about Donald Trump and how he left us one of the worst job markets, he left us all these terrible things, he probably did leave those things. But one thing you cannot argue, between the years of 2016 to the years of 2020, America did have one of the best economies. You can't argue that. That's what it was. What the problem is that I don't know what it is, but maybe Donald Trump or maybe being conservative is polarizing, and that's what you're trying to piggyback off of. But you're not going to sit here and pretend like your administration has done the absolute greatest economic thing ever. I refuse to let that happen. That's not going to happen. That's terrible. Let's get back into it.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas, I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns, we got masks, we did things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people.
Oh, I was waiting for her to say that. I wanted her to say that because I actually broke down all of Kamala's plans. I want you guys to see. I want you guys to hear this. One of the first plans that Kamala has is a federal ban on price gouging. The reason I'm bringing that up is because her price gouging plan makes absolutely no sense. It makes absolutely no sense. I want you guys to see this TikTok or this video specifically talking about it, because it's just idiotic. But let's get into it.
Well, Catherine Rampell, the Washington Post columnist and NewsHour contributor, said it's impossible to exaggerate how bad this policy is. And I agree with that. And Catherine had a good line that if your opponent is calling you a communist, maybe don't lead with price controls. And so price controls just create shortages. They create black markets. We've seen it happen in Venezuela. We've seen it happen in the Soviet Union. Price controls just don't work. What's worse about that, first, it's trying to address a problem that does not exist. Grocery prices, inflation has been less than 1% for the past year. It's over. We had a surge, but it's over. The problem does not exist. But the real core problem is it expresses a level of economic illiteracy, which is kind of surprising in a responsible Democratic candidate. The idea behind greedflation is that we had all these years of low inflation under Obama and under Bush's, and I guess people weren't greedy then. And then Biden gets in, and suddenly, magically, they all get greedy and start price gouging. And they do it at Kroger's, at Harris Teeter, at H-E-B. Suddenly there's this mass of price gouging, and she thinks she can prosecute it. That's not why inflation surged. Inflation surged because we had a pandemic, which screwed up supply chains and productivity. Then the Biden administration overstimulated the economy, too many dollars chasing too few goods. Obama administration officials Larry Summer and Jason Furman said at the time, this is going to cause inflation. Lo and behold, it did. The Fed has to clamp down on growth, raising everybody's interest payments. That's what caused inflation. That's solid basic economics. Her greedflation plan is somewhere off outside of normal economics.
And that's the problem. Her plan doesn't make sense. And the reason why this is so important is because I want you guys to realize what her plan is. Price gouging. When did price gouging start? When Donald Trump was in office, was this an issue? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he was the perfect president. I'm not saying that at all. But these issues that the plan tries to adjust, or these issues that the plan tries to, frame as, oh, Donald Trump caused this issue, it wasn't necessarily even him. So I'm just confused on that. And if you guys are also confused, please let me know, because I don't get it.
I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you, because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and many of those professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run.
I take it a step further, because I actually did look into this. I'm not going to say Kamala doesn't necessarily have a plan. I will 100% say, though, the Biden administration or Kamala's campaign does copy Biden. And Biden's campaign actually copied Bernie Sanders. And the reason I'm saying this, please hear me out. What is the basis of Kamala Harris's economic plan? This video is specifically about economics. I'm not talking about any other issue right now. The basis of her plan is to give money back and help the average American. One of the things she will decide to do is give $50,000 to small businesses, or give $25,000 on housing credits, or give $6,000 on childcare, or just give, cut prices, cut inflation, cut everything. The reason why this plan is a problem is because currently today, America has some of the highest inflation we've seen. Right now, America is not on a gold standard. We're on a credit standard. The reason why this is important is because if we have inflation and our money isn't technically backed by anything real, Where are you going to get this money from? The $50,000 for small businesses. Where is that coming from? Where are you going to get the money from for $25,000 per home for first-time buyers? Speaking of which, the housing market has increased by 47% in the past 4 years. So logistically speaking, even if you give $25,000 to first-time home buyers, the housing market has still gone up 47% in the past 4 years. I'm speaking about since 2020. So that's not even going to really help anyone. The average income needed to buy a house in 2024 is $106,000, 47% higher than it was 4 years ago. So the 25,000, I don't really see that going super far, but it's still money nonetheless. However, if you have a socialist plan to help a failing economy right now, which is in a recession, how is that going to help us make more money? Right now, we need a plan that will help America get back on its feet, that will help America fight housing crisis or fight a housing crisis, that will help America produce more goods so Americans could get more jobs. Speaking of which, the job market is also failing. So how is your plan going to help? How? And I really want to know how. It doesn't make sense to me.
4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly.
My mic was muted, but is this a 3-on-1? What type of question is this? And I'm not trying to say the question is not suited, but they have not asked Kamala this type of question before. And this is what I'm talking about. This is the most detailed economic question I've heard in the past, 20 minutes watching this debate. Kamala's over there nodding her head like, yeah, that does make sense. That sounds pretty right. Yeah, that's what I mean. And I get it. Maybe that's just the first question, that came to his mind. But I don't know how he had that question whatever. Maybe he just had that question. Why didn't they ask Kamala's any questions about why the economy is failing right now? Do we just forget? And I will say this. Vice President Kamala Harris is not our current president. So, of course, you can't say it's her responsibility. This is not her administration. She did not pick the cabinet. She's on the cabinet. However, you are the vice president. You are the number one advisor to President Biden right now. No one's going to ask her about the economy right now. No one. I'm the only one who cares. It's crazy to me.
$4,000 a year. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response. And you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited
a trade deficit. This is angering me. This is genuinely physically angering me because he asked you, yeah, Donald Trump was right. Why is the economy bad? And your response was a trade deficit when Donald Trump was in office. Mind you, I'm not saying there wasn't a trade deficit. When Donald Trump was in office, I was playing high school and middle school basketball. I don't know if there was a trade deficit. It probably was. She's probably 100% right. My problem is he asked you specifically, why is the economy bad right now? Do you have anything to say about that? You didn't respond. And I'm going to play this straight through because I just want to hear why her opinion on why the economy is struggling right now. I genuinely want to know how she's going to answer this question.
Trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the...
That was funny. And the reason why it's funny is because actually what the Biden administration is doing right now, it kind of is Trump's philosophy. And I'm going to speak specifically about the chip industry or the semiconductor industry because my field is engineering. One thing the Biden administration is doing right now is bringing semiconductor manufacturing back to the United States. And they're trying to build facilities in Arizona, so on and so forth. And what they're doing is they're giving money to schools so that they can push out graduates in these industries. That's what's happening. The reason I'm bringing that up is because something like that, where you're bringing technology back to the country, that is a Trump thing. That is very Trump. And the reason I'm saying that is because his catchphrase, which is extremely famous, is "Make America Great Again." One thing he did was try to bring jobs back to America, stop trading with other countries. That's actually one of his biggest criticisms. He doesn't want to trade with other nations. He wants things to be done in-house. He wants Americans to get it. He doesn't want to intertwine with too many other places. That's what he does. So for you to sit here and criticize him for his sharings with China, it's just kind of strange when I hear that, because Donald Trump is known for being very, I guess, patriotic in his sense of, I don't want to work with other places. That's his biggest criticism. He doesn't want to work with other places. And now you're saying he does want to work with other places? I'm just a little confused. So if anyone knows, comment down below.
End of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and when you look at these millions and millions of people that are pouring into our country monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and I think it's a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals. And that's bad for our economy, too. You know, you mentioned before, we'll talk about immigration later. Well, bad immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump.
And that's what I wanted to cover in this video. I'm going to leave it as that for right now. I really want to focus on the economic issues because to me, I don't think she really answered the questions when it comes to our current economy. I don't. I know she has the economic plan for when or if she becomes the next president, but being Gen Z, that really just triggered me a lot because you're in office now. Which it's a struggling generation for everyone. The recession is hurting everyone, and you're just gonna pretend like it's not a real issue. I'm not a fan of it. But if you like videos like this, comment down below and wait for part 2. It's gonna be good. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.